Okay, we're live. I think we're live. We're live. Yeah. I don't have a lot of energy today, so I'm going to apologize for that straight away. I did stream yesterday, so this is kind of like a bonus stream. Or I guess yesterday was a bonus stream. I don't know. But yeah, I figured I'd just play something pretty chilled out, something that's supposedly quite thought-provoking. I have not played this game before, nor have I seen anything past the first 15 minutes. So yeah, this is just going to be something new, something to chill out, play on a Wednesday evening, and just have a good time, I hope. Let's have a look. Yeah, we'll shove on director's commentary, seeing as we have it. Might as well. This is supposed to be like you walk through the world, as the world tells you a story. If this works.
Hello everyone, I'm Dan Pinchbeck, I'm the creative director of The Chinese Room, and this is the...
Oh yeah, no, we don't want director's commentary, we're going to turn that off. Let's try this again. I don't want to know what the game was made by yet. I'll do another playthrough later. We'll do it then.
Dear Esther, I have lost track of how long I have been here, and how many visits I have made overall. Certainly the landmarks are now so familiar to me that I have to remind myself to actually see the forms and shapes in front of me. I could stumble blind across these rocks, the edges of these precipices, without fear of missing my step and plummeting down to sea. Besides, I have always considered that if one is to fall, it is critical to keep one's eyes firmly open.
So it's kind of like an exploration game of sorts. And it's got its creepiness. But there's no combat or anything in this game. It's supposedly walking through an immersive world. And seeing what you find. You can zoom in. Like that. And slowly the game will speak commentary to you in the form of these Dear Esther letters. Just a bunch of paint. Let's go down for a bit first. It's quite a beautiful game. The idea is just to walk through it. To take in the environment and find a kind of peace in it. And I will say now it is rather beautiful. Even the mist and the sea spray is pretty cool. There's a lot of detailing that's gone into that. I think this game is a few years old now. I want to say maybe 2020, 2019. Before the world went to utter shit. I'm joking, it's been going there for a long time.
At night, you can see the lights sometimes from a passing tanker or trawler. From up on the cliffs, they are mundane. But down here, they fugue into ambiguity. For instance, I cannot readily tell if they belong above or below the waves. The distinction now seems banal. Why not everything and all at once? There's nothing better to do here than indulge in contradictions whilst waiting for the fabric of life to unravel.
So yeah, I think this dives well into like philosophy and philosophical concepts. The idea of being alone with oneself and really one with your environment. I'm no stranger to the ideas of philosophy, nor psychology. I quite enjoy both.
Dear Esther, I found myself to be as featureless as this ocean, as shallow and unoccupied as this bay, a listless wreck without identification. My rocks are these bones, and a careful fence to keep the precipice at bay. Shot through me caves, my forehead a mount. This aerial will transmit into me so. All overexposed, the nervous system, where Donnelly's boots and yours and mine still trample. I will carry a torch for you. I will leave it at the foot of my headstone. You will need it for the tunnels that carry me under.
It's interesting how he's coming up with all these concepts of like being and relating to one's environment in such a deep level, in a deep way. I think when one's truly alone, you start to see insights into yourself and your environment, and you really learn what it is to be you. But it is interesting how they've kind of walked that into what appears to be a beautiful yet hauntingly empty space. There's no way to speed through it either, and there's nothing here other than you and the sound of the ocean and the waves and the wind. Yeah, the comments he makes are both lonely and full at the same time. Like, he knows himself so well and yet has only learnt so by being alone.
The mount is clearly the focal point of this landscape. It almost appears so well placed as to be artificial. I find myself easily slipping into the delusional state of ascribing purpose, deliberate motive to everything here. Was this island formed during the moment of impact? When we were torn loose from our moorings and the seatbelts cut motorway lanes into our chests and shoulders, did it first break surface then?
The juxtaposition of old and new as well. The environment being natural and yet him discussing
When someone
it.
had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Sounds like he's talking about the mind being affected by here.
We are not like Lot's wife, you and I. We feel no particular need to turn back. There's nothing to be seen if we did. No tired old man parting the cliffs with his arms. No gifts or Bibles laid out on the sand for the taking. No tides turning or the shrieking gulls overhead. The bones of the hermit are no longer laid out for the taking. I have stolen them away to the guts of this island, where the passages all run to black, and where we can light each other's faces by their strange luminescence.
He almost sounds like the ravings of a madman. But there is some weird sense to it as well. I know I could have gone that way, but I want to see what's down here first. Hear what he has to say.
Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life.
God, that's very dark. Very dark indeed.
This hermit, this seer, this distant historian of bones and old bread, where did he vanish to? Why, asked the farmers. Why, asked Jakobsen. Why bother with your visions at all, if you're just to throw your arms up at the cliff and let it close in behind you and seal you into the belly of the island, a museum shut to all but the most devoted?
These definitely are the scribblings of a madman. It's such a desolate landscape. You know, the one bird we've seen the whole time since being here. Alone just like we are. There's definitely something characteristic about that. It's a beautiful environment, a beautiful place, but it's almost a weird thing to experience it alone. And you know, the letters we keep hearing sound like this prior individual's way of trying to share it. Both reaching out and wanting to remain alone at the same time.
The vegetation here has fossilized from the roots up. To think they once grazed animals here, the remnants of occupation being evidence to that. It is all sick to death. The water is too polluted for the fish, the sky is too thin for the birds, and the soil is cut with the bones of hermits and shepherds. I've heard it said that human ashes make great fertilizer, that we could sow a forest from all that is left of your hips and ribcage, with enough left over to thicken the air and repopulate the bay.
The idea of us killing things around us is certainly not new. You know, we all should be very aware of that. This does half sound like a philosophy class, though. Can I climb up here? I wonder what the pathing allows and what it doesn't. Okay, so I gotta push on through this bit. It just feels so empty. And I know that's the point. It kind of leaves you time to think between quite depressing, frankly, statements of truth from a voice you don't know, but seems familiar with you.
Esther. I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome brake services. But although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
It's interesting he's talking about, like, driving, and yet this is an island remote away from everything. Trying to find something that isn't there that you can always see. Something always just out of reach kind of thing. I mean, it's amazing as well how this almost looks like it fits here, but at the same time is incredibly out of place.
It's only at night that this place makes any sluggish effort at life. You can see the buoy and the aerial. I've been taking to sleeping through the day in an attempt to resurrect myself. I can feel the last days drawing upon me. There's little point now in continuation. There must be something new to find here. Some nook or some cranny that offers a perspective worth clinging to. I've burnt my bridges. I've sunk my boats and watched them go to water.
And neither did he eat nor drink. That's kind of a depressing notion in of itself. Neither did he eat nor drink. Letting himself fall apart, almost. Wanting to fall apart. The idea that there's nothing more that you can experience. It's dark. It's amazing how creepy it feels just being alone in this space. The environment isn't empty, it's not gone, it's just so lonely. There's things here to look at, places to explore, and yet no one to experience it with. And that's almost frightening. And the way the music cuts out sometimes just leaves you with this. It really emphasizes that point.
There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived?
Just gonna open my drink. Yeah, it's definitely something somehow scary about all of this. Somehow frightening. In a world that's built to have so
I had
much.
kidney stones and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
So is someone, I'm guessing he's lost someone? Is that what's led him to this existential dive?
Is this what Paul saw through his windscreen? Not Lot's wife looking over her shoulder, but a scar in the hillside, falling away to black forever.
So yeah, it seems he's talking about some kind of car crash. Taking someone away from him. I'm tempted to jump down, but... well, I don't know what would happen. I guess that's the irony of that. Fear of the unknown.
I've begun my ascent on the windless slope of the western side. The setting sun was an inflamed eye squeezing shut against the light shone in by the doctors. My neck is aching through constantly craning my head up to track the light of the aerial. I must look downwards, follow the path under the island to a new beginning.
So he's talking about the trauma of surgery. Some kind of illness. Maybe, I don't know, life-threatening illness of some description. Most people have lost someone to something like that. Whether it be a form of cancer or kidney, liver issues. I think no one can say they've never known anyone to die of such things.
The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him either.
Once again, it's that isolation. The loneliness and emptiness.
Inventory. A trestle table we spread wallpaper on in our first home. A folding chair. I laughed at you for bringing camping in the lakes. I was uncomfortable later and you laughed then. This diary, the bed with the broken springs. Once asleep you have to remember not to dream. A change of clothes. Donnelly's book, stolen from Edinburgh Library on the way here. I will burn them all on the last morning and make an aerial of my own.
I guess this in a way of an exploration of what it's like to know you're going to die. A depressing thought, but I guess natural in its way. And how we as people begin to understand the world around us and the world we've lived in, the people we've been around. When we realize that we won't be there for them much longer. You know, the land itself here being a metaphor for his state. Kind of broken and torn, but with so many facets to it. So many details. And the ocean slowly changing it over time.
Jakobsen's ribcage, they told Donnelly, was deformed. The result of some birth defect, or perhaps a traumatic injury as a child. Brittle and overblown it was, and desperately light. Perhaps it was this that finally did for him, unable to contain the shattering of his heart. In half-light, his skeleton a discarded prop, a false and calcified seabird.
Ow, that is, potent.
They found Jakobsen in early spring. The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. He'd struggled halfway down the cliff path, perhaps looking for some lost goat, or perhaps in a delirium, and expired, curled into a claw right under the winter moon. Even the animals shunned his corpse. The mainlanders thought to bring it home unlucky. Donnelly claims they dragged it to the caves to thaw out and rot, but he is proving an unreliable witness.
He keeps talking about someone being like a witness. Someone telling him these things, Donnelly. I just wonder then, what was he looking for? And whether we'll ever find out. Just can't get over how the sky looks. It is stunningly beautiful, this game. It's interesting he was just talking about a ribcage. And the boat itself being destroyed as it is almost seems like an open one. Just lying in the sand. Like every design detail in this game was thought through so clearly. You have to respect that.
Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
God, that music was creepy in the background. And his story damning. saddening, even. I guess we fool after him.
Donnelly's addiction is my one true constant. Even though I wake in false dawns and find the landscape changing, flowing in constantly through my tears, I know his reaching is always upon me.
It's so dark and twisted. I mean, it's so beautiful, but terrifying.
It was as if someone had taken the car and shaken it like a cocktail. The glove compartment had been opened and emptied with the ashtrays and the boot. It made for a crumpled museum, a shattered exhibition.
I wonder what all this means. It doesn't seem like I can even go on from here. Ah, so I go back. It looks like teeth almost. It is just so beautiful. I guess we're going down. Just look at it, the effects, everything. The way the music changes. It's almost becoming more saddened. It's very beautiful, but lonely. And it's the fact that there's no one else here, so empty, void of any life, that makes it almost scary in its own way. It's almost like these candles promise life, but you don't see any. And the narrator, whoever he is, talks of bones and death. Yet in a way that's almost comforting. And the movement is so smooth. So smooth. Almost like you're gliding through it.
I am traveling through my own body, following the line of infection from the shattered femur towards the heart. I swallow fistfuls of painkillers to stay lucid. In my delirium, I see the twin lights of the moon and the Ariel shining to me through the rocks.
It's so dark and depressing, yet so beautiful. And like, it pushes you to want to explore. You want to hear more from this narrator. More Dear Esthers, more letters. In a world that is so absent of life, it somehow breathes so much. It feels alive. I know it wants me to go up, but I don't want to. Not yet. I wonder if there are other paths. More narration, less. I'm curious about this world they built. It's always interesting as well how all of the stalactites just hang pointed and sharp above you in this interestingly dark and lonely environment. Like you're just waiting for another thing to go wrong as the narrator tells you of his broken leg, his willingness and acceptance of death. Like swords of Damocles just staying there, waiting to fall. And these almost appear like roots of trees. Branches seeping out, connecting one another in a strange way. Tears in the walls themselves.
This cannot be the shaft they threw the goats into. It cannot be the landfill where the parts of your life that would not burn ended up. It cannot be the chimney that delivered you to the skies. It cannot be the place where you rained back down again to fertilize the soil and make small flowers in the rocks.
Cremation, death, all accepted here. A literal depiction of rock bottom. Behold Damascus. Something taken? Went insane, it seems like. Lost himself in all of it. Away from being a city. Andor's... what's that say? Shall be a ruinous heap. Okay. No, this writing's so difficult to read. It's almost like every time you see this human interaction, it's more terrifying, not less. The loneliness being crippling, yet that scares you. Nope, going in. Gotcha. Let's see if I could go around it, but I guess it's another loading screen maybe. It's like we died? A drunk driver? Some kind of collision? Are we in fact dead? Is that what this is? We've slowed down so much. Feels almost like a task to even get to the end. Once again, finding evidence of human life yet absent from it.
The moon over the Sanford Junction, headlights in your retinas. Donnelly drove a grey hatchback without a bottom. All the creatures of the tarmac rose to sing to him. All manner of symbols crudely scrawled across the cliff face of my unrest. My life reduced to an electrical diagram. All my gulls have taken flight. They will no longer roost on these outcrops. The lure of the moon over the Sanford Junction is too strong.
It's like he's reliving the pain of that moment over and over and over again. Like this place itself is his mind. Broken. As it is here. Some parts you can't cross, other parts scribbled on. Fractured. Each of these piers almost seem like thoughts incomplete and broken. Candles at the end of each one. A frequent sign of loss and remembrance. Here we see row upon row of it.
Of fire and soil, I chose fire. It seemed the more contemporary of the options, the more sanitary. I could not bear the thought of the reassembly of such a ruin. Stitching arm to shoulder and femur to hip, charting a line of thread like traffic stilled on a motorway, making it all acceptable for tearful aunts and traumatized uncles flown in specially for the occasion. Reduce to ash, mix with water, make a phosphorescent paint for these rocks and ceilings.
The body itself. Ready for death, ready to be burnt. This is in remembrance of them. Died on the table. A car crash. Drunk driver, from what the narration seems to tell us. Out here is almost a conflict of that. So natural and empty, absent of life beyond it. It's sad. Almost looks like a person up there. In fact, that definitely looks like a person. But I have no way up. Must be almost watching. Not creepy at all. It's those eerie sounds every time. You see something new. And potentially scary or creepy. Like it knows. Are the letters then written to the person who died? In that
There were
sense,
chemical
we died.
diagrams
We
on the
did.
mug he gave me coffee in, sticky at the handle where his hands shook. He worked for a pharmaceutical company with an office based on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. He'd been travelling back from a sales conference in Exeter, forming a strategic vision for the peddling of antacid yogurt to the European market. You could trace the connections with your finger, join the dots, and whole new compounds would be summoned into activity.
A light from heaven shone around me. No, him. A light from heaven shone around him.
From here, I can see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the Atlantic, and I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink.
So they died when he was away. There's guilt in that. A lot of guilt. On a sudden, light from heaven shone around him, and he fell to the ground. That's very sad. Light from heaven can mean car lights, can mean a number of things. It's almost double meaning in that sense.
When Paul keeled over dead on the road to Damascus, they resuscitated him by hitting him in the chest with stones gathered by the roadside. He was lifeless for 21 minutes, certainly long enough for the oxygen levels in his brain to have decreased and caused hallucinations and delusions of transcendence. I'm running out of painkillers, and the moon has become almost unbearably bright.
That person-looking thing again.
I've begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom. I will fly to the moon in it. I've been folded along a crease in time, a weakness in the sheet of life. Now you've settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. I can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and carves parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.
Okay, that was definitely a person here. And as he was proceeding on his journey, they're gone. And has come near to Damascus. And he
If
was
only
there.
Donnelly had experienced this, he would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection.
And he was there for days without sight. Neither did he eat nor drink
Returning to my car afterwards, hands still shaking, and a head split open by the impact. Goodbye to tearful aunts and traumatized uncles. Goodbye to the phenomenal. Goodbye to the tangible. Goodbye Wolverhampton. Goodbye Sanford. Goodbye Cromer. Goodbye Damascus. This cliff path is slippery in the dew. It is hard to climb with such an infection. I must carve out the bad flesh and sling it from the aerial. I must become infused with the very air.
And it came to pass that as I made my journey. Oh, this is hard to read. Read the rest of it. It's just ruins. There's nothing left of it. And a man wanting to be a part of the land around him because he feels so deeply ingrained within it. And it came to pass that as I made my journey, and was some... Oh god, that's difficult to read. Something about things passing in the moon. That some form light shone from heaven. Right around me this time, not him. And could not see from the
A gull
gloom.
perched on a spent bonnet, sideways, whilst the sirens fell through the middle distance and the metal moaned in grief about us. I'm about this night in walking, old bread and gull bones, old Donnelly at the bar gripping his drink, old Esther walking with our children, old Paul as ever, old Paul. He shakes and he shivers and he turns off his lights alone.
It's so distraught. Being led by the hand. Of them? Who's them? And it's so loud now. Came into them. Again, a person, just a silhouette. Yet I'm forced to
leave
break.
twin vapor trails in the air, white lines etched into these rocks. Dear Esther, I have burnt my belongings, my books, this death certificate. Mine will be written all across this island. Who was Jakobsen? Who remembers him? Donnelly has written of him, but who was Donnelly? Who remembers him? I have painted, carved, hewn, scored into this space all that I could draw from him. There will be another to these shores to remember me. I will rise from the ocean like an island without bottom, come together like a stone, become an aerial, a beacon, that they will not forget you. We've always been drawn here. One day the gulls will return and nest in our bones and our history. I will look to my left and see Esther Donnelly flying beside me. I will look to my right and see Paul Jacobsen flying beside me. They will leave white lines carved into the air to reach the mainland, where help will be sent.
It's so painful, and yet so beautiful. As we are now a seagull. He wrote his letter of death on the walls themselves, etched into the landscape. And left his letters to sink.
Come back.
Wow, okay. Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's quite dark. Very dark. It's literally talking about a man's life. Losing someone. Not being able to get it out of their head. Yikes. And it driving them to that. That is so utterly terrifying of a thought. It's so beautifully portrayed. And just, yeah. Even now, as they stop the music, as the credits roll, when normally there would be a song of some description, it means you have to think. There's something amazing about that, not gonna lie. As I said, I think this is a few years old now, and the design of the game was to promote thinking and to really just make you understand and respect and appreciate what you have. I definitely think they did capture that in that sense. It's gone from one extreme of, you know, being in an environment where there's little music and just ambience to absolute silence. Oh, 2017, there you go. Hey, we love that they're UK based though. Gotta shout out the UK creators. Yeah. There you go, guys. That was Dear Esther Landmark Edition. Beautiful game if you ever want to get into anything that's really thought-provoking. Trigger warning if you do play it, obviously. It does deal with suicide. It does deal with losing loved ones and drowning yourself in it, drunk driving. But, yeah, I mean, definitely worth a play. Just experiencing it yourself. Yeah, I really don't have much more I can say. That's just put me in a deep state of thought. And, yeah, I'm definitely going to be thinking about that for a while. The wording in it alone is beautifully written. And the way that it depicts, like, I don't know, a person as an environment, as the island itself, is fascinating, really, and quite philosophical in a way. But yeah, I'm gonna end stream there. It was a short one today, I know. But I don't have a lot of energy today. If you do want to see any more of the stuff that I've done, we did do a stream yesterday. I did one with my mate Flux. Just playing some Siege, messing about, a bit more lighthearted, a bit more normal perpetual nonsense. But yeah, I hope you guys have a lovely evening. See you soon.